Hi students, let's talk about the sensory imagery practice assignment. So we already talked about sensory imagery back when we discussed show, don't tell, but it's so important that I wanted to give it its own lesson and its own practice. So we all have 5 senses. We have the sense of sight, the sense of hearing, taste, touch, and smell. And when we are experiencing the world, we use all 5 senses. So when you are writing, you want to try to describe things using the 5 senses as much as possible. Now, there are some senses that you might use more when you're writing than others. For example, you're probably going to describe the way that things look the most often. Next, you might describe the way that things sound. Touch, right, the way things feel might be the third option. Taste and smell, you might not use quite as much, but they're still important. And when you can incorporate them into your writing, you should. So for this assignment, you are going to take all 5 senses and you are going to practice describing something using that sense. So for the first one, you're going to use the sense of sight, visual imagery, to describe, and you have a choice. You can describe either a busy street or a carnival. For the next one, you're going to try to describe things using sounds or your auditory imagery, and you're going to describe either the woods or a supermarket. So again, imagine if you were walking through the woods. What would you hear? What would it sound like? How would you describe that sound? Same thing if you're going to the supermarket. What sounds would you hear? How would you describe those sounds? Next is touch or tactile. So imagine if you're at the beach or you're outside on a snowy day. What would you be feeling? Next is smell, which we call olfactory. So what would you smell if you were walking through a school or a city dump? Maybe they smell similar to you. And the last one is taste or gustatory. So imagine that you're eating a slice of pepperoni pizza or your favorite sandwich. How would you describe the way everything tastes? So I give you an example with the first one. So I decided to describe a carnival. And I said, I reluctantly climbed aboard the weather-beaten Ferris wheel, its rusty metal skeleton showing through the chipped white paint. The pimply ride operator stopped texting on his cell long enough to pull the switch, and suddenly the monstrous steel death trap shuddered to life. It inched along at a tortured pace, while its light bulbs first dimmed, then brightened painfully, threatening to burn out or burst with the effort. So you can really imagine what this Ferris wheel looks like, right? You can tell, I use words like, I'm reluctantly climbing aboard, so you can imagine that. I don't really want to go on. The Ferris wheel I'm describing is weather-beaten, it's rusty. I'm describing it like a metal skeleton. I'm describing that it has chipped white paint, so what it looks like. I'm even describing the ride operator. I'm describing the way that the Ferris wheel is moving, and also what the lights on the Ferris wheel are doing. So you can also conclude through the way I wrote about the Ferris wheel that this is not a really fun ride, that this doesn't sound like a great carnival to be at. When you're describing your carnival, it could be awesome, right? It's totally up to you. But you want to make sure you're using as many different descriptive words to show what it looks like. So you want to do the same thing, again, if you're walking through the woods, right? Imagine, what does it sound when you're walking, right? What are you stepping on? What kind of sound does it make? Maybe what animals do you hear? What are the trees doing? You might want to imagine, what time of year is it? The woods in winter are going to be different from the woods in spring or fall. You're going to do that for all of them. Now, in case you're having a hard time thinking of some sensory words to use, on the next page, I do have a bunch of different words that you might want to consider trying to incorporate in your writing. You don't have to use them, but they give you some different ideas of what you could use to help describe the things. So for each one, you only have to choose one. So you either have to choose, the busy street or the carnival. Don't try to do both. Have some fun. For each one, you should be giving me at least one really good one or up to 3 descriptive sentences. You really should be able to kind of fully fill up the space I give you. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. I hope you have fun.